And I'd also like to welcome you to the Brookings Institution this morning. I'm Mark McClellan. I'm the Director of the Healthcare Innovation and Value Initiatives here at Brookings. I'm also a Senior Fellow in Economic Studies. And today we're joined by leaders from across the healthcare system, including patient advocacy groups, clinicians, health systems, the medical device industry, insurers, government, and academia, and all together for a productive discussion on post-market evidence to support medical device safety and innovation. Medical devices play a critical role in healthcare, and it's essential to have access to reliable and meaningful information about their safety, effectiveness, and quality to make sure that they're used effectively today and to make sure that we improve the uses of medical devices as rapidly as possible for the future. This information can not only be used to inform decisions about patient care, can also be used to support the mission of the FDA. The FDA is charged with protecting and promoting the public health by monitoring the safety and effectiveness of medical technologies. And this requires that the agency understand the risks and benefits of medical devices as they make regulatory decisions. FDA has been actively working to expand and enhance its ability to fulfill this critical role. The FDA activities include a set of initiatives developed by FDA's Center for Devices and Radiologic Health, or CDRH, to make regulatory processes more efficient and especially to facilitate access to safe and effective medical devices. A key part of those initiatives focuses on developing better post-market or real-world evidence on medical devices. And we're here today to take an important step toward better post-market evidence on medical devices. The CDRH commissioned the Engelberg Center for Healthcare Reform at Brookings to convene a broad-based planning board. The goal of the planning board is to identify the governance policies, priorities, and business models necessary to develop a sustainable national system for medical device post-market surveillance. The planning board members were selected through a public nomination process in early 2014. The membership includes a diverse group of 22 representatives from patients, clinicians, payer and provider organizations, the medical device industry, researchers, and representatives from key government agencies, including FDA, the National Institutes of Health, the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and the Office of the National Coordinator for Health Information Technology. And I want to thank all of them for their hard work together over the last 9 months to develop this report. Some of the members were able to attend in person today. I'd like to recognize them particularly. Kathy Blake, Joe Drozda, Dave Flum, Tom Gross, Matt McMahon, Dale Nordenberg, Carol Walton, Natalia Wilson, Mark Overhage, and Pat Schrader. It's been a real privilege to work with such a tremendous group on this topic. The report released today is a reflection of that hard work. It includes the Planning Board's recommendations for the long-term role and structure of a national medical device post-market surveillance system for the United States and short and medium-term strategies to achieve that long-term goal. A full copy of that report is available this morning on the Brookings website. We also appreciate FDA's support in this effort. FDA has a clear need to collect reliable and timely information on medical devices, and CDRH has highlighted better post-market evidence as a critical opportunity. But they're not alone. Everyone has a vested interest in improving information about medical products. Patients and clinicians need information about devices to inform their clinical decisions. Payers want to ensure that the products they cover lead to optimal patient outcomes. Manufacturers want timely and reliable feedback on the benefits, risks, costs, and other impacts of medical devices. And this plan was developed in response to concerns about the nation's ability to monitor the safety and effectiveness of medical devices, to meet the challenges of supporting medical device innovation, and inform the evolving learning healthcare system. In this context, surveillance means more than safety. It encompasses collection and development of more timely information on the benefit, risks, and potentially costs and other effects of medical devices over the total product life cycle. This information can inform the development of new products, comparative effectiveness, quality measurement, product tracking and utilization, economic analyses, and other potential valuable uses. I know the planning board is eager to comment on this topic and get your feedback on the report. That feedback starts now, this morning. The discussions today are intended to begin the process of taking this report and turning it into an effective set of next steps to address this public health problem, this national priority. The best momentum for real progress is thoughtful discussion, constructive comments as a basis for practical steps forward. As the report makes clear, progress in our healthcare system can't happen without the engagement of everyone who has a stake in better evidence on devices: the public and private sectors, clinicians, product developers, payers, consumers, and patients. Now, I'd like to go quickly over the agenda for the day. Jeff Shuren, the director of the Center for Devices and Radiologic Health at FDA, is going to start us off with some opening comments on the context for this report and FDA's activities. Then we'll have an overview of the report itself by two of the planning board members, Kathy Blake from the American Medical Association and Mark Overhage from Cerner Health Services. Their presentation will be followed by responses to the presentation and the report by a panel of key leaders, including Omar Ishraq from Medtronic, Bill Murray from the Medical Device Innovation Consortium, Lou Sandy from United Healthcare, Alan Guttmacher from NIH, Alan Balch from the Patient Advocacy Foundation, and Jody Daniel from the Office of the National Coordinator, who's also a planning board member. Then this second session will take a more in-depth view of some of the issues around the report. That'll lead into another session on medical device innovation. That one will focus especially on how better post-market data collection can be done and used effectively to inform development, regulation, and coverage decisions, including a rebalancing of the pre- and post-market regulatory requirements for devices. With a stronger post-market system in place, some of the issues that currently have to be dealt with in the pre-market side can now be dealt with perhaps more effectively in terms of real-world data on medical devices. We're then going to have a break for lunch between 11:30 and 12:30. We'll reconvene here again at 12:30 for the third and fourth sessions of the day. Now, reflecting the importance of the issues discussed in this report, the release is coming amid a focus on Capitol Hill in Congress on improving biomedical innovation. The 21st Century Cures effort in the House Energy and Commerce Committee, and the Initiative for Healthier Americans led by the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. This session after lunch will feature key congressional staffers from the Senate and House committees that are leading these efforts on biomedical innovation, including Wade Ackerman and Grace Stuntz from the Senate Help Committee, and Clay Alspach and Eric Flam from the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Then in our final session of the day, we're going to talk about a variety of current efforts related to medical device surveillance and how they can be leveraged as building blocks for developing and implementing this long-term vision. The panel to close out today's sessions includes leaders in medical device evidence development. Mitch Krukoff from the Duke Clinical Research Institute Registries Task Force, Rich Platt from Harvard Pilgrim, who leads the Sentinel Initiative for the FDA, Carmela Bocchino from America's Health Insurance Plans, Joe Selby from the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute, and Sally Oken from Patients Like Me. So that's an overview of the day. Before we get started, just a couple of other housekeeping items. As you all can see, this is a public event. It's being webcast live. It is open to the press. Panelists, I want you all to be mindful of our timekeeper, Pranav, right there, right in front, who will remind you when you're approaching the end of the time. We're going to try to keep this moving along because of all of the perspectives and ideas that we want to get in today. During the session, for those who are attending, we'll have opportunities to ask questions near the end following each of the panel discussions. If you do have a question, you can just raise your hand. We'll get microphones to you. And then finally, just one other logistical issue. We've got coffee, tea, sodas, water available in the hall outside of this room to the side. Then lunch will be on your own between 11:30 and 12:30. Our staff has a map of the local lunch options available at the registration table. Brookings also has a small cafeteria, and you can bring your food back in here for lunch to eat. It's because the cafeteria is not that large. And if you also go out to lunch, you're welcome to bring food back into the meeting room during the break. Okay, I think I've covered all the logistics, so let's get right to it. I want to introduce Jeff Shuren, the Director of the Centers for Devices and Radiologic Health at the FDA. Jeff has served as a leader at CDRH for the past few years, but he's actually been at FDA since 2003, right? Thereabouts. He's worked very closely with the commissioner at that time. He's been the director of CDRH since 2010, and as CDRH leader, he has undertaken a number of initiatives working both with his staff and with the broader public to develop and implement a strategic plan for CDRH, focusing on enhancing the center's systems and processes for device safety and to encourage beneficial device innovation. He's also led efforts to expand the ability to reliably collect and use post-market data to support regulatory decision-making and public health. Jeff, we're looking forward to hearing from you to kick us off this morning. Please come on up.
Well, good morning. Welcome, everyone. I am delighted to be here at this major milestone for establishing a national medical device post-market surveillance system. It is a key first step, but it is a very big first step, and of course, much, much more to do. I'd like to start by thanking and congratulating Mark McClellan, his team here at the Brookings Institution, all the members of the planning board, and everyone else who has contributed to this effort. It's a big achievement, and we're off to a terrific start. Congratulations. I'm going to take a few minutes and try to put this in context about, from an FDA perspective, how we got here and where we are today. You know, if you think back over a decade, we were looking at post-market surveillance, and our thinking back then was always on safety. How do we identify new problems? And our real tools were passive surveillance. You know, we'd look at doctors, patients, could they identify a problem and be willing to report it into us or into the manufacturer? And if we needed more information, we'd ask the manufacturer to conduct another study, gather more information. And we had a big challenge back then, being able to identify the device that may be associated with the particular problem, because we had lots of manufacturers of the same kind of device. And you know, unlike drugs, devices are constantly changing. So the question is not only which device, which version of that device? Were there modifications that were made? And it was very hard to do. So much of the discussion back then was establishing a unique device identification system, but all about on the safety side, and using that number to incorporate into medical device reports so we better understood if there was a problem, maybe what was the device associated with it. But there have been three major changes over time that are changing how we think about that post-market data. So one is the evolution of electronic health information and the adoption of the use of such information, such as through electronic health records and the creation of medical device registries and administrative claims. The second is the development of advanced methodology. So on the one hand, we now have tools to better capture real-world experience with medical devices. Then we have the development of tools that let us make better sense of that information, because we're dealing with observational data. It can be very dirty and very hard to make lemonade out of lemons. And the third is a fundamental change in the thinking of FDA. So CDRH has been moving to fully embrace the dual nature of our mission, which is to protect and promote public health. Protect by providing reasonable assurances of safety and effectiveness of the devices on the market and assuring they're of high quality. But promoting public health by facilitating medical device innovation and speeding patient access to safe and effective devices. And sometimes those dual aspects of our mission go hand in hand. And sometimes there's a tension. So if you think about it, if you want to show a device is safe and effective, a very good standard it's going to require time and money to gather that evidence. Right? And you can see this reflected in the vision for the center, that patients in the U.S. have access to high-quality, safe, and effective medical devices of public health importance first in the world. First in the world not because it's a competition between countries, but because it's a measurable outcome. And it tells us if this is good technology, remember that's the first part, high quality, safe and effective, then we want to get it to patients as soon as possible. That's what that vision reflects. But here's the challenge. You want to show it's good, but the more you ask for, the more data you need, the more challenging it is in order to get faster patient access to it. And there are trade-offs there. And that's then reflected in the need to strike the right balance in what you need for that product to go on the market versus what you may be able to gather after it has gone on the market. And you can see that in our strategic priority of striking the right balance between pre-market and post-market data collection. Last year, we proposed a program called an Expedited Access PMA. It's essentially breakthrough medical devices, something we've been piloting since 2011 as the innovation pathway. And the idea is the following. If I have a technology that's for a life-threatening or irreversibly debilitating condition and addresses an unmet medical need, doesn't it make sense from a public health standpoint to accept a greater level of uncertainty regarding the benefit-risk profile of that device, but still meeting the standard of reasonable assurance of safety and effectiveness? And then gather the rest of that data post-market. That's a little bit of that trade-off, right? But that makes sense from a public health standpoint. But think about how we would go about in getting it. To get that data, you'd go to the company and you'd say, conduct a post-market study. But of course, once you throw technology into the wild, it's much harder to gather data through a clinical study. There's less incentive for people to participate. And we struggle with that. And the second is real-world data can actually be far more informative about that technology than what we may learn from a clinical trial. A clinical trial can be very artificial. But if we want to know what the real benefit-risk profile of a technology is, then we have to see its use in the wild, in clinical practice. But you have to gather that data systematically, and you have to be able to make sense of it. And if you can do it, you can fundamentally change how we introduce technologies and assess technologies here in the U.S. And that is what is behind our proposal in 2012 for establishing a national medical device post-market surveillance system. Not the old idea of simply surveillance for the purpose of find a new problem, but rather also to better understand the benefit-risk profile of a technology, feed it back to providers and patients to make better informed decisions, feed it back to developers to make better products, but also to leverage that information to reduce the burdens on the pre-market side for introducing technology here in the U.S. And when we said a national system, we did not mean a system that was an FDA system, not something we would run, not something we would own, but rather one that is by, of, and for the medical device community, governed by the medical device community and used by the medical device community. With at its backbone, electronic health information, particularly electronic health records and medical device registries, and then supplemented with other sources of information, like payer claims, and incorporating into them a unique device identifier. So now linking the use of a device with a patient's experience with that device, not just in medical device reports, but truly in the capture of the day-to-day clinical practice and experience with that technology. And then to apply advanced methodologies to that information and foster the development of such methodologies. And then be able to analyze, feedback that information into the system. That was the idea. But to make it work, there are certain key challenges. That data has to be sufficiently robust and timely to be able to make certainly regulatory decisions, but other decisions based upon it, and have the kind of safety net in place that you truly can introduce technologies earlier into the marketplace than you otherwise would. And secondly, you need to make sure that that data collection and those analyses are sufficiently efficient and cheap, dare I say such a word, but cheap, so that you can do this in a sustainable, ongoing basis within a system. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. It's one of the challenges with post-approval studies. It costs a lot of money to do, let alone that it's hard to get. And the system has to be inclusive of members of the medical device community and transparent about what it is doing. And it's got to be pragmatic, because there are trade-offs. If you gather more data, it can cost more money. And different players have different interests and needs. But if we want to get the broad buy-in and trust in the system we need to have, then we do have to be inclusive, transparent, and pragmatic. And of course, we have to protect the privacy and the security of confidential information, particularly information, personal information, about patients, if we are to succeed. Now, FDA is strongly committed to this effort. It's why we put the strategy out. It is why we turned to the Brookings Institution to pull together this planning board and the medical device registry task force that will be reporting out in the near future as well. It is why we have also moved forward and established a unique device identification system that now is being incorporated into device labeling. It's why we are working with the Office of the National Coordinator for Health Information Technology and other partners to incorporate the UDI into electronic health records and other sources of electronic health information. It is why we are working to develop advanced methodologies through the Medical Device Epidemiology Network, of which we have been a co-founder in that public-private partnership. And is why I'm very pleased to announce that we have hired Greg Pappas, a very first Associate Director for National Device Surveillance, someone then who can have greater accountability and ownership for making this happen. So we have a brave new world that faces us. And of course, we have the opportunity now to take advantage of it. It is my deepest wish and hope that all of you will want to be people who embrace that dream, and not only embrace it, work together to make it happen. So thank you very much for being here, and again, congratulations to all on today's release of the report.
Jeff, thanks very much for your comments to get us started. As I mentioned before, the Planning Board has been working on this project over the past 9 months. A project of this type is always challenging given the scope of the task, the need for inclusiveness, as Jeff highlighted, the diversity of perspectives that need to be included. But that's also a strength that enabled us to bring together a lot of expertise and a lot of important considerations that need to be addressed. And not only that, not only bring them together, but find ways to actually move forward together to accomplish those goals. The Planning Board took all of this on. It developed a shared vision of the characteristics and functions of a national device surveillance system. And not only that, also some concrete steps on how to get there in the next few years. I'm now going to turn to speakers from the Planning Board to provide an overview of the report. I'd like to introduce Kathy Blake, Vice President for Performance Improvement at the American Medical Association, who has a tremendous record on working in activities involving registries and other sources of evidence to promote better quality care and better evidence on medical products. And also Mark Overhage, the Chief Medical Informatics Officer at Cerner Health Services, who has been involved extensively in the development of information systems and the development of better evidence systems and statistical methods for learning from complex practical data systems. So Kathy, turn it over to you to get started. Thanks.